Hey guys, how's it hanging? It is TheLivingBlueJay here, and today I've got some more interesting news for Dead by Daylight x Five Nights at Freddy's. So we've got a few things to go over, like a teaser image, teaser video, and some more information. So let's get into this video, but before we do, if you are new here, just consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us on out into that YouTube algorithm. So over here we have another post precisely shared at 12 AM. It says, "I wouldn't trust anything coming out of that kitchen." And I find this tagline interesting because this can somewhat infer that we will actually be getting a peek inside a kitchen in a video game that features a Freddy's location. But anyway, their teaser image takes place within a kitchen. Just like last time, there is another cryptic note, only this time taped onto a stove with pots on top. It says, "Do not leave the stove on if you leave the kitchen. Did no one read the employee booklet?" Now this really made me wonder, is this referencing a fire, similar to Fazbear's Frights? Could survivors have a way to burn Springtrap alive? The first ever time a survivor would ever be able to actually halt and take down a killer? The next piece of information is a teaser video that features cameras. We have someone flipping through camera perspectives from a men's washroom. The camera then flips to a hallway with tables, and lastly, it flips to a perspective of the dining hall. As we can see, there's tons of balloons, tables, and a peek at the entrance of the arcade. While monitoring this camera, there is a sound of a vent that breaks. It is unclear whether the sound is coming from the cameras or from behind the camera watcher's back, but either way, this is pretty terrifying. So looking at this footage, I can see these red arrows. I believe these arrows represent alternative cameras, and if you click on them, you'll switch over. And our final piece of information comes from a recent live stream from Dead by Daylight. So with that in mind, it appears that it is possible that they've showcased a chase theme for Springtrap during this event. Here's a small sample, but if you'd like to hear more, head over to their live stream VOD 15 minutes and 40 seconds in. We have Eric on the left side and Jay on the right side. Jay is asked, what was it first like working on the FNAF chapter? Jay designs a lot of their licensed chapters, so it only makes sense that he'd take on FNAF. Jay discusses how he knew of this franchise prior, but he never actually looked far into it until he began developing this upcoming chapter. He never knew how deep the lore went, and he thinks the story is way more horrifying than he initially imagined.
I was obviously aware of it. I mean, everybody is. It's become so iconic in such a short period of time. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't really realize how kind of deep the lore and the story went before I started kind of looking into this chapter. So it's been cool, and like the story is way more horrifying than I ever thought it would be, to be honest.
Oh yes!
Jay mentions how he's watched roughly 60 to 70 hours of YouTube and Twitch content related to Five Nights at Freddy's, looking to understand not only the mechanics, but also the community and their thoughts and reactions.
60 to 70 hours of content of some of the more popular streamers, I guess we can say, all through all the games, including the VR stuff and things. You know, not just to see games and how they played, but also players, how they react, the community, how they react, what kind of, getting the inspiration for the experience of FNAF.
Jay was asked what was the most surprising thing he's learned while diving into his research. He claims seeing such a passionate fan base was something he was not expecting going into FNAF. He acknowledges how we deeply discuss and analyze every little piece of imagery and information, and claims he wouldn't be surprised if someone had a board with red yarn and pins connecting various images, which I'm not gonna lie, he's completely accurate.
This won't be a surprise to most people, but it was to me, was, like I said, just how passionate the community is. They're like you said, it's very similar to DVD in that respect of like very passionate fans and very passionate community. People who kind of, they watch the trailers and they watch gameplay and they pixel peep.
Oh yeah.
And they kind of start stringing things together, and I imagine there's at least a few Five Nights fans with like the boards with pictures and the string all over them.
Jay also brings up in conversation that his daughter bought him Freddy Fazbear socks for Christmas. which he showcases. And similarly, Eric mentions his son has given him the Freddy plushie he's currently holding for good fortune.
My daughter bought me Freddy Fazbear socks for Christmas.
Got Freddy on the feet. Likewise, my son gave me his Freddy plush for good luck today. So,
when asked how he approached the design of Springtrap, Jay says he recognizes the immense differences of gameplay from Five Nights at Freddy's more stationary gameplay and Dead by Daylight's non-stationary gameplay. So Jay asked himself, what is the FNAF experience that people are looking for? Things like the security office, power, jump scares, and figuring out how to implement traits like those into Dead by Daylight.
So it really became about kind of nailing down what the quintessential Five Nights at Freddy's experience is. Things like the security office, the battery power, all those amazing jump scares.
Yes.
And just kind of figuring out how to adapt that into the context of DVD.
Jay talks of the goals for Springtrap, and his gameplay was to lean more heavily into the concept of jump scares, the very staple of FNAF games, without making him a complete stealth killer.
So one of the goals for Springtrap was to figure out how to lean into those jump scares, which are kind of the thing about the Five Nights at Freddy's games, right? Without making him just a straight up stealth killer, which was something we wanted to avoid.
From here, their livestream begins showing some awesome teaser images of Springtrap, which I'll be showcasing as I talk, but Jay mentions how he's tried to create Springtrap as a grab-based killer. He'll have two weapons. He has a large pizza knife as a primary weapon, and a heavy fire axe as a secondary. If you use the fire axe, you'll be able to throw it much like the Huntress. If you throw the axe at someone, whether it is a hit or a miss, there will be an AoE effect that'll last 15 seconds. If a survivor walks through that AoE, they'll gain killer instinct on them for a short period of time. And if you actually hit a survivor with your fire axe, that fire axe will literally be stuck in the survivor's back as they bleed out. You'll have to find somewhere to hide and remove it, or have another survivor remove it even quicker. Jay isn't completely clear with this statement, but he mentions that Springtrap can retrieve his fire axe instead of attacking the survivor twice to encap them. If the fire axe is in a survivor's back, you can just pick that axe out of their back, as well as the survivor themselves.
Okay, we're killing the axe. Yeah, you see that? Another icon there. Oh! What? And I grabbed him? That is insane.
So I can't tell, but from the sounds of it, Springtrap might only have one axe, and he'll have to find it when he loses it, whether in a survivor's back or on the ground. Jay, however, mentions you can recall it whenever you want, which I don't quite understand what that means. I'm almost thinking like a boomerang effect. Eric and Jay then dive into discussing the security office. It's mentioned that this office allows the survivors and killer to have a shared experience, as both are able to take advantage of the camera system. But not only that, there's apparently 7 doors that are also both usable by both sides to move around the map. You can cycle through these 7 doors to be able to visit any camera perspective. Eric brings up that regardless on what map you're playing on, for example, if it's not Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, no matter what map, there will be a security office as long as Springtrap is the killer, which I'm very interested to see how this security office will look outside of FNAF. In order to encourage camera use for survivors, if any survivors sees Springtrap on a camera, he'll be revealed for a few seconds for everyone. In regards to battery power, survivors will share their power life for camera use, as well as actually using one of the 7 doors will remove a chunk of power life, and everybody will have to manage battery life as a team. If the power, however, does run out, he mentions there will be a shutdown mode for 45 seconds where the doors, cameras, and office are not usable whatsoever. Springtrap does not affect the battery life, nor has a battery life of his own. Forwarding to the topic of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place map, Jay mentions how this has become one of his favorite maps. He mentions this map leans into jump scares and Easter eggs.
Their team really wanted to make sure that they did the same when it comes to things like Easter eggs and scares around the map. So it really pays off if you're kind of an exploratory player a little bit.
If you have to guess which doll on. Oh, no.
He talks of being able to explore the inside and outside of the pizzeria.
There's going to be a lot, you'll see a lot of small references and stuff, but obviously we've recreated a lot of kind of the iconic areas from the game, but we're also letting you exit the pizzeria to explore the outside a little bit, which is really cool.
A screenshot is showcased here of the parts and service room, featuring a bunch of empty mascot heads and an endoskeleton. He confirms the kitchen will be accessible.
And we have areas like the kitchen and even the mechanical room, which is cool. And
this last shot showcases this roughed up looking endoskeleton, so hearing all this information really solidifies that, yes, this is actually happening. Later this summer, Springtrap will be arriving into the world of Dead by Daylight. From what I understand, there is an early beta going on right now, so if you have the game, you can test out a bit of the killer, surviving against him, as well as roam around the actual map. So if you have the game, you may be able to take advantage of this early beta, or if not, there's a bunch of content creators on YouTube and Twitch to check on out. And man, from the gameplay that I've seen so far, this looks pretty spectacular. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, just consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, tell me what you thought. Huge shout out to Eric and Jay for sharing this awesome information, and Sprix for some early beta footage. So go check all of them out. Tell them I sent you, and if you'd like to see my previous teaser coverage, click the video that you're currently seeing on your screen. Or maybe if you'd rather see some awesome gameplay on Afton's Revenge, which if that's the case, click the other video that you are currently seeing on your screen.